Good morning, everyone, distinguished guests. Welcome to this session of the IGF entitled Empowering Marginalized Communities, Harnessing Internet-Powered Citizen Data for Inclusive Public Services. My name is Alexandra Wild. I'm with UNDP's Global Policy Center for Governance, and it is my pleasure to moderate this very exciting panel and session this morning. Today, we will be really focusing on the pioneering experiences of Ghana and Colombia, exploring the potential of citizen-generated data in improving the engagement of citizens in the measurement and assessment of public service delivery. We have many colleagues here with us in the room and colleagues online who have also tuned into this session. Some of those online include also some of the people speaking in the session today. First, we will have some opening remarks by Sarah Lister, the co-director for UNDP's Governance, Rule of Law and Peacebuilding Hub. We will hear today an introduction to citizen data and the contribution of the Collaborative on Citizen Data that will be shared with us by Charlotte Hunson of the United Nations Statistics Division, also a co-host of this session today. And we will hear, as I said earlier, the experience of Ghana from my colleague Omar Saidu, the head of social statistics at the Ghana Statistical Service, and also the experience of Colombia with citizen data from my colleague Aura Gamba, who is with DANE, the Department of Statistics in Colombia. Then we will hear from two discussants that will sort of share their perspectives on some of the very exciting advancements we will hear today. The session is only an hour. We have a very hard cutoff time. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sarah Lister to open the session. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, friends and partners, those in the room and those online. Welcome to this session on empowering marginalized communities, harnessing internet-powered citizen data for inclusive public services. It's a real pleasure to open this timely discussion on how digital tools and citizen engagement can transform how we understand and deliver public services, especially for those who are most often left behind. As many of you know, the United Nations Statistical Commission, the highest decision-making body in the global statistical system, took a landmark step earlier this year by endorsing the Copenhagen Framework on Citizen Data, which we will hear more about in this session. This marks a critical recognition that traditional data systems alone are not enough, and that there is a demand for people to be able to contribute to generating information about themselves in a manner that reflects and serves their interests. To build truly inclusive institutions, we need data that reflects people's lived experiences, especially those of marginalized and underserved groups. But inclusion doesn't stop at collecting or using that data. It also means returning that information to the people themselves, empowering communities through access, transparency, and accountability. This is why the expansion of citizen data as an approach is so important for UNDP. At UNDP, we support over 130 countries in building institutions that are inclusive, accountable, and responsive. Strengthening public service delivery, particularly for those furthest from power, is central to this mission. But governments can't improve what they don't understand. And they can't understand without taking into consideration different viewpoints, including from the people they directly serve. That's where citizen data, powered by the internet, can be a game changer. By putting digital tools in the hands of people, we can help communities not only access services, but shape how those services are designed, delivered, and evaluated. This helps answer the most fundamental governance questions. What do people need? Are services working? Who is being left behind? And why? Today, we're fortunate to hear from two countries at the forefront of this approach, Ghana and Colombia. Both have been exploring how citizen-generated data, enabled by internet access and digital innovation, can improve the inclusivity and responsiveness of public services. Their work offers practical lessons on how to connect official data systems with community-level realities, ensuring that services are not just available, but equitable and effective. This discussion is especially relevant in the context of the Internet Governance Forum because the IGF is about ensuring that digital transformation serves people, rights, and democracy. When people share data online to improve their communities, it shows that digital tools can strengthen the connection between people and their governments. Citizen data powered by the internet helps build trust, promote accountability, and make public services more responsive. It allows for a form of digital participation that is grounded in everyday realities and promotes accountability from the bottom up. UNDP is the UN entity responsible for the global monitoring of SDG Indicator 16.6.2, which measures people's satisfaction with public services such as healthcare, education, and general government services. The indicator focuses not on abstract perceptions, but on actual experiences, access, quality, and affordability. By combining official data sources with citizen input, we can create a richer, more accurate picture of service effectiveness and drive more informed decisions. Ultimately, this is about bringing governance closer to people. It's about ensuring that digital transformation doesn't widen gaps, it closes them. And it's about showing that when communities are empowered to contribute their voices and experiences, they become co-creators of better public services and stronger institutions. Thank you very much for joining us, and I really look forward to the rich insights from today's presentation and discussion. Thank you very much, and Alex, back to you.
Good. Thank you, Sarah. That's a very helpful framing for the session. I just want to pick up on one particular issue, which is this fundamental idea of that it's not just about collecting data from people, but also returning that data back to communities to empower them to be able to engage in governance. And for that reason, it's very much my pleasure to introduce Charlotte Hunson from the United Nations Statistics Division, who is representing the Collaborative on Citizen Data, who will take us through what is citizen data and how that whole very idea is so central to this understanding of citizen data, and also share with us sort of the work on the collaborative and the Copenhagen framework on citizen data. Now, Charlotte's online, and I'm hoping that we will have a smooth handover to Charlotte. Over to you.
Thank you so much, and hello everyone from Copenhagen. So I will give you a very brief introduction to citizen data and the Copenhagen framework on citizen data and how it's being implemented by the collaborative on citizen data. So next slide, please. Next slide. Can you hear me? Yeah. So first, what is citizen data? In the Copenhagen framework, it has been defined, and it basically refers to data originating from different initiatives in which citizens are engaged at various stages of their data value chain. And this is whether or not this data is integrated into official statistics or not. Is there a problem with the audio? It's a bit unclear to me, sorry.
Well, I can hear you fine, Laura. I'm not sure about others here in the room.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep, we can all hear you, thanks.
Okay. And the key aspects is really that there is sufficient and meaningful participation of citizens and that the citizens are engaged throughout the entire value chain, or the data value chain. So next slide, please. So there are many different types of citizen data, and for those of you who might not be so familiar with citizen data, I have here a few examples. Can be civil society organization that gather data on marginalized population, usually the people that they represent. Can be communities, whether they are geographical communities or thematic communities that gather data on topics that's relevant to them. Or another example is crowdsourced data, for example, from digital platforms that gather real-time information on various topics. It can be pollution monitoring, for example, waste on the beach, or different type of public infrastructure that people are using, and that can give information to authorities of how well their services are working. Next slide, please. Sarah was also already mentioning some of these different type of contribution that citizens can have on to data and what that data does. Just something to highlight here is, of course, it's a way to empower communities and improve their dialogue with public authorities. It's also about having marginalized voices heard and having those voices respected, and then also expanding the production of power to citizens. Next slide, please. Since citizen data is a fairly new area, particularly in official statistics, there are different challenges with this data for the time being. A key thing is lack of trust or engagement between partners that have usually not worked together. So these are state institutions, particularly the National Statistics Office, working with different type of non-state actors. We have concerns about the data quality. Collected by non-state actors, because this is something that often has been done by this National Statistics Office, and now we have a new type of data. And this also links to the third bullet here, which is about the limited knowledge about data and maybe the lack of statistical capacity among these actors. So there's a bit of concern around data quality as being a big area. There's also issue with the sustainability of these different type of citizen data efforts, because we like to, at least in the official statistics world, we like to measure time series and see how things are developed over time. But can we be sure that if we use these data sources, they are reproduced year after year or over a certain period of time to make sure that we can measure progress? So these are some of the challenges. Next slide, please. And because of these challenges, and the need to address them, but also to really give power of citizens to contribute to data, the Copenhagen framework has been established. It was endorsed in March 2025 by the UN Statistical Commission. And it kind of, in its basic form, conceptualize and define citizen data. But it also kind of outlines the many different roles that citizens and national statistical offices can play in the different stages of data production. And it has also some quite specific active points on how to produce, have a sustainable production and the use of citizen data. Next slide, please. So the collaborative is a network of a lot of organizations, communities, civil society organizations, NSOs, human rights institutions, academia, different types of regional and international organizations. It was established in 2023 and has been mandated by the UN Statistics Commission to develop and finalize the Copenhagen framework on citizen data. So that's now in place, and now it's being implemented. But this network is also a space to share knowledge and foster collaboration and basically learn about citizen data because it's such a new area. And the collaborative is also very much engaged, particularly at the moment, to develop different type of guidances as how to handle the methodological gaps and some of all these challenges that I mentioned before. Next slide. So the actual work at the moment of the collaborative is, as I just said, really focused on developing these different type of knowledge projects to help facilitate the work and the more extensive use of citizen data. And we have a whole set of guidances that we expect to be completed by mid-2026. focusing on data quality. How do you handle data quality of citizen data? How do you engage citizens in a meaningful and participatory way? How do you form partnerships among these different type of actors in countries? How do you work with intersectionality and qualitative data? We see that citizen data have more qualitative data than, for example, national statistical offices are used to work with. So that's also a new area, particularly for national statistical offices. We will also have a toolkit for how to develop national toolkits that kind of look at the national context, but take in experiences from around the world and some of these more generic recommendations on how to work with citizen data. We also supporting countries. We have worked with Colombia, Kyrgyzstan, Nepal, and Malawi, but we have others to come that's going to feed into the work the next 2 years, both to support countries, but also to learn from the countries. And this will also provide input to the development of the guidance that we are working on. We have an annual expert group meeting. The next one takes place in October 2025. The previous ones have focused a lot on setting the stage and figuring out what citizen data is and developing the Copenhagen framework. But now we're moving on to more sort of in the implementation mode. Next slide. So yeah, everyone's welcome to join the collaborative. As organizations or contributors in any form, we have a website and you can find a lot of information there. It's being updated at the moment. And if you can't find what you're looking for, you're welcome to email us at citizen.data@un.org. Thank you very much.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, Charlotte. And for everyone, please do check out the information online. It's a very inclusive collaborative, and as you've heard, you have access to a lot of the practice and the insights and the guidance that's being developed within that very energized movement. Charlotte also highlighted some of the challenges in sort of integrating citizen data with official statistics. We're going to hear a little bit about that now, but also some of the opportunities. So I'm going to ask my colleague Oma Saidu, again, the head of social statistics at the Ghana Statistical Service, to share with us the experience of Ghana in integrating citizen data into national statistics. And to sort of elaborate on, some of those challenges and utilizing, really timely, accurate, and reliable statistics to promote trust in government institutions and their decision making. Over to you, Omar.
Thank you very much, Alexander. As already indicated, citizens' data data that are originating from initiatives which involve citizens' engagement throughout the various stages of the data value chain. And these are guided by the principles of inclusiveness, responsiveness, professionalism, and the ethical production and use of the statistics. Now, in Ghana, our motivation had been in 2017, we did a data road assessment, a data roadmap assessment to understand our capability of monitoring the SDGs. And it came out clearly that if we do not do something different from what we are used to, we might not be able to measure all the SDGs. And so our motivation stems from the fact that we wanted to know how citizens' data can provide timely, disaggregated, and actionable data for monitoring the SDGs. What technology-based tools are appropriate for representative data collection, and what pathways exist for addressing quality issues and building trust in these data. Now, we have had a long history of engagement with citizens' data. In fact, we started in 2019, just before COVID, piloting the use of citizens' data for monitoring 5 SDGs indicators, 4 under gender-based violence. And so we deployed an application called Let's Talk, where we try to measure those 4 SDGs indicators. We developed another application the same year called Clean Up Ghana, which kind of engages citizens and waste management companies to try to measure another SDG indicator. While the first one was a success in measuring those indicators, the second one on Clean Up Ghana was not successful in measuring the SDGs indicator, but it was successful in engaging and providing a tool for the local government to engage with the citizens and build trust in solid waste management. Then our third one was the marine litter, which we did in 2021. And in fact, Ghana was the first country to monitor the SDG indicator 1411B and submit the data to the global repository. And this piece of work has received a lot of awards. And last month, I was in Rome to receive the Joe Award based on this work. Then in 2023, we tried another one, basically on Leave No One Behind. There is a policy in Ghana, it's a law actually, to ensure that 3% of the local government resources are allocated to provide services to persons with disabilities. So we wanted to assess the effectiveness of that, and we used citizens data approach. And for the first time, because of the level of engagement, we were able to develop functionalities for persons with disabilities to engage with the applications. And based on that, then we work with the UNDP on the most recent one, which 2024, citizen satisfaction with public services, and that will be the focus of this discussion today. It's been a very good project because it shows how much citizens can contribute to providing feedback on services that they are expected to receive. Now, in all these citizens data projects, 10 key processes are common across all of them. And what is important to note here is that in all the processes, the citizens are engaged right from the planning stage, the data compilation stage, even the development of the application and the data use. And I will mention a few instances where citizens have used this data to demand some service improvement in their areas. I will not attempt to go through all the processes, but it is important to know that coming from a National Statistical Office where we are used to well-established methodologies, you need to have institutional buy-in even within the institution to get everybody to accept that this is a good way to invest time and resources in. And then you need to ensure that the key stakeholders are mapped and you identify the different interest groups and bring them on board. Situational analysis to ensure that, and that is very important, the enablers and barriers of the use of this, because if you're in a country where a lot of people do not have mobile phones, or even when they have mobile phones, they do not have Android phones that have internet, then you need to develop functionalities for them to be able to engage with the application. And so these are very important features of this project. Importantly is your public education and sensitization efforts, because that is what will get as many citizens to know about this and engage in the process. And that is an important tool to ensure that people who ordinarily would be left behind in data collection, in our surveys and all that, are part of this process. Now, let's look at some interesting results. Now, when we deployed this piece of work, you can see that most people engage who do not have, 56% of the people engage with the IVR process, where there's an interactive voice testing messaging, and so without that feature, for instance, it means that more than half of the population wouldn't have engaged with the process. Then with the application that is downloaded from Play Store or Apple Store, there is voice interaction within it and test options. So for people who are literate, a lot of them would prefer to use the test. But for people who may not be literate, they engage in their local languages through the application, and so you see 24% of them. And we also provided functionalities for people to report on behalf of others with their consent, and that also showed that 40% of the users had to get someone to file a report on their behalf. And the different local languages, recording all this in the different local languages, and also with the functionality for persons with disability, also ensure that we have wide coverage in this. Now, when we were done with this, after going through the data quality and doing all that, then we wanted to understand whether this really represents the situation on the ground. So here you can see on my left side, the pie chart shows that we compare the sex disaggregations of the two districts where we piloted this with the census, because Ghana had conducted a population and housing census in 2021, and so we compare the sex disaggregation from the census and the citizens data, and you can see that it's almost the same for both districts. Then the bar charts on my right are the persons with disabilities in those two districts. The first one looking at what we have from the census, and the second one is looking at what the persons with disabilities who are engaged with the app and you can see also that there are quite some good representation of the different population subgroups. Now, beyond the census, in 2019, Ghana had actually implemented a nationally representative sample survey on this same SDG 16.6.2 with the support of the UNDP. And you can see that at the time in 2019, 97% of children below 18 years had been in need of health medical treatment within the previous 4 weeks. And in 2024, using this same citizens data on the same, we see that almost 90% of children have been in need of health. So which means that there's some level of representation in this data. Then the rightmost charts is showing the level of satisfaction the citizens have indicated with the healthcare delivery from the public health services. And we can see, of course, 2019, 2024, but you can see that for those of us who live in Ghana, this reflected the sentiments within the country within the period, and you can clearly see some similarities there too. Then on education, and this is very important. In the 2019 nationally representative sample, we see that 55% of households had children 5 to 18 years in those households. In 2024, using the internet-based citizens data, you can still have 56% of households have children between 5 to 18 years, which means that there's some level of representation, and the rightmost chart is giving the public satisfaction with public education delivery in both the sample survey and the citizens data. Next, on the third one, which has to do with people needing a national ID system and either to obtain it or to renew it. In 2019, we see that a third of the population had indicated that they had been in a need of a national ID system. And in 2024, this has increased to 70%. And in fact, in a recent survey we have done in 2025, we realized that the fourth most important public entity that citizens in Ghana visit is embassies of other countries. And this really reflects the findings from this citizens data that 70% had been in need of a national ID. And in the report, you see that whilst in 2019, the most important sought after national ID was a Ghana card, in 2024, it was the Ghanaian passport. And so people were frustrated also if you look at the satisfaction level in terms of the timeliness of the service and all that. And interestingly, when we published this, not long after that, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a directive to get people who had applied for passports and had taken a long time to get this passport sent out to them. And also, currently, we have a situation where the cost of passports are being, of obtaining passports are being reduced. Now, it is important to know that for a successful rollout and how to overcome the common challenges is the inclusive nature of developing the application with both the local people and the national stakeholders, and an establishment of a regular and consistent internal feedback mechanism, and understanding the key stakeholders' interest for engagement. That is very important, because once you engage, in fact, in developing this, there are 12 different domains of persons with disabilities in Ghana, and we make sure we engage with all these different domains, and that helps us to develop the functionalities for persons who are partially blind, for persons who have hearing impairment and all that, to engage with the application. And one other important thing is minimizing the user costs through optimization of the application. These have been some of the key challenges that we have over the period been able to mitigate to ensure that there is wide participation in this project. Yeah, so we have, because this is a learning process, we have documented even the processes that we started with from the beginning, not just the technical report. The processes also have been documented to provide information to other countries and other people who would want to replicate this. And of course, we also did another report comparing this survey data with the citizens' data report. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Omar. And please, colleagues, do look into this documentation. It's very rich, not only the findings, but also the processes of engaging citizens, the utilization of digital, including the app. And I might add to that too, there is further documentation in the Wiley Sustainable Development Journal. So there's a lot of resources that are really capturing this important experience for SDG monitoring, and particularly of the indicator on satisfaction with public services. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Aura Maria Moreno Gamba, who is with the National Administrative Department of Statistics in Colombia, DANE, to share with us also Colombia's journey with citizen data, and in particular the Data in Action initiative. Over to you, Aura.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to show you how the experience has been working, or has DANE working on, especially with the citizens' data. In this case, it's important to show you that we are in the same line that the Copenhagen framework, in terms of identifying that citizens' data is all the initiatives that in which the citizens participate, but not only as a regular way in terms of collecting data or giving information or data to an institution, for example. In this way, it's so important the participation of the citizens in the different stages of the data value chain. And we consider that this participation has to be sufficient and meaningful in all the process or in all the stages. According to that, we have developed or have identified the importance to create a citizens' data framework in Colombia. This is an initiative, or is a document that we want to build thanks to the support for the Global Partnership for Substantial Development Data and the United Nations Citizens Data Collaborative, and obviously taking into account all the participations of civil society organizations, the academia, and all entities that belongs to the National Statistical System. In this way, or in order to develop the initiative, we have established different stages or different actions in terms of develop the framework. One of them is create different workshops in which we can interact with different civil society organizations and citizens as well, in order to identify which aspects they consider so relevant in terms of considering in the build of this framework. We have been working in different workshops, and we are going to see later. And it's a strategy in which we identify if we are going to create a document for the citizens. Obviously, we need to establish the collaboration, or how we call co-creation with the citizens. On the other hand, we have been considering including the maturity model in the framework, because we consider that it's important to establish different dimensions, level, criteria of evaluation in order to let the civil society organization and the citizens in general be able to do a self-assessment in terms of identifying which step in which process they are in terms of the construction of citizens' data. And in that way, we can, as an institution, give all the support, all the help that the institutions need in terms of which tools they can apply, which standards they can apply in the generation of citizens' data. And we have developed a form in which, or the idea of this form is to identify how many civil social organizations are in Colombia, and how many of those are interact with citizens and produce citizens' data. And one of the strategies that we have been working on as well is the creation of a pilot application. It calls AppDiversa. Is the name, AppDiversa. And the idea is to be or have the possibility to measure some sensitive topics as discrimination, for example, in order to let or have the possibility to identify how, or these topics, how works, and have the possibility as well to measure some SDGs indicators. So the initiative of the Data in Action followed the different normativity. For example, in Colombia, we have the statistical law in which this document or this law established the importance of the inclusion of different characteristics of the population. And the idea is that all of those characteristics are included, are visible. So that's why we work in the same line for the law. And we have in Colombia the National Statistical Plan, in which the goal 35 specifically, they mention the importance to create a document that is our citizens data framework in order to give some recommendations, good practices, some advice in terms of how interact with the citizens, civil social organization, in the processing, validating, and use of statistical data. And obviously, the importance of statistical culture, that is so important to identify that citizens act not only as a giver or a person that gives information continuously to an institution. In this case, it's important to identify the citizens as or their important role in the ecosystem data. And obviously, if we interact with or we create citizens' data, we can identify the possibility that citizens has in terms of be part of the government agenda or show the different situations that civil society can face. In terms of the workshops, the idea to create these workshops is that we can identify or establish a different way in which we can co-create with the civil social organization. We have been working together in terms of identifying what dimensions, what criteria they use in terms of producing citizens' data. And obviously, we try to not focus in the capital city, Bogota. We try to develop these workshops in different areas in order to identify the different situations that people face in the territory, and not only in the capital. So that's important. We have been created workshops in Cali, in Medellin, and other places that is so useful for us to identify the topics. And the things that we have been identifying in terms of the quality of these workshops is that we can establish a scenario in which we create a network in which different civil social organizations can identify in which topics they can work together or support each other. So it's so helpful. And obviously, we have been the main actors in our workshops we have the participations of civil social organizations, the academia that has identified the potential that citizens data has in terms to identify different or sensitive topics. Why we consider a maturity model or a maturity model, because we identify the importance in which the self-assessment can help to the civil social organizations in terms to identify in which steps they are in terms of the production of citizens' data. And as I mentioned before, the idea is that as an institution that it can provide different tools, guidelines in terms of how they can improve the level or the statement in the different aspects of the production of citizens' data. So in that case, the idea is work together or co-create as well this maturity model. We have been developed a workshop directly to identify how civil social organizations identify what dimensions are so important, what criteria of evaluation are so important in terms of this maturity model, and determine specific aspects they can use, and in that case interact with different areas or different different areas in DANE in terms of which methods, which tools they can use. As I mentioned before, we developed a form in order to identify how many civil social organizations are in Colombia, and we identified that 150 civil social organizations work in the different stages of the data value chain, and we identify the most common stages in which citizens participate is in the data collection and the analysis and dissemination of the data. And from these 150, we identified that 95 civil social organizations work directly with citizens, and the main topic is the environment topic, is one of the most relevant or common topic that the civil social organizations work with, and the gender topic as well. So we can identify in which aspects they work, and obviously the idea is to increase the amount of civil social organizations that we will able to identify and work with in the same or in the other scenarios as the workshops and other spaces that we create. And finally, in terms of the app Diversa, that is a strategy that we have been working on in terms of identify this sensitive topic. We have developed a pilot application with the support of the Global Partnership and the APC Colombia. And the idea, as I mentioned before, is to identify or measure these sensible topics as discrimination. Now we have discrimination as the main topic, and we have developed this module, and the idea is to keep working in other modules as the gender-based violence and the access for the public services, in order to have or identify some data related with these topics, and obviously let us measure the SDGs, for example, in terms of discrimination, the 16B1. And here we identify that this app can help us like a multi-collaborative scenario, because in the test that we have been doing with the citizens, we collaborate or we co-create as well in terms of to identify the aspects, the questions, if are correct, if they are clear in order to develop the app. And we identify the importance that it app helps not only interact in one way. The idea is to interact in different ways, not in a regular as obtain or capture data for the citizens. In this case, the citizens have the opportunity to interact constantly with us in terms of the building of this app and the importance that this app can have in terms of go to the territory, because in a regular ways, census or surveys, is so difficult to go directly with those territories that could be difficult to access in a normal way or in a normal survey. So in this case, we consider that this app could help in terms of identify aspects relevant that maybe is not so usual to ask in a normal way. And here you can ask or you can access to the QR code in which we develop, or the app is in production. The idea is to be launched in October. So we are keep working on it, and the idea is that if you want to search a little bit the discrimination module, you can access. Obviously, the structure is in Spanish, but if you like to take a look, go ahead. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Aura. And we're running very short of time, and I've been transitioning very quickly. But I'd like us to take a moment now to give a round of applause both to Omar and to Aura for this really excellent sharing, a very frontier and really inspiring experience. So please do follow up with them both during the IGF and look at the resources made available online. I'm going to turn now to one of the co-organizers of this session and a really important partner in the broader work on citizen data and integration with official statistics. And that is to invite Dilek Frazel, who is joining us online. She's a senior research scholar with the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, IIASA. She's just going to kick off a little bit of the discussion, and I'm hoping we have a couple of minutes for questions and for those here to share their views. But she's going to just sort of highlight a couple of points coming from this experience to kind of share with us and allow us to sort of further reflect on. So over to you, Dilek.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, and thank you everyone for attending this important event. I am really sad that I couldn't be there with you today, but I would like to talk about a few points that is related to this project and in general to citizen data projects, related to citizen data projects. So I really find the conversation we're having today is extremely important and very timely, as we could see also the UN SD and partners-led Citizen Data Collaborative is also understanding and supporting the importance and timeliness of this work. And as a person who is heavily involved in citizen data, both as a scientist looking at the topic from a theoretical perspective, but also as a practitioner using citizen data approaches for scientific research and production of knowledge, I'm very excited to be here and to be part of this important conversation and session. And I would like to mention a few points regarding the project that was presented by Omar and led by the UNDP Global Policy Center for Governance and the Ghana Statistical Service so greatly. And I've been privileged to be closely involved in this groundbreaking project since the start. And I'm saying groundbreaking because the project was innovative in many fronts, but I'll mention one. This is the first time a national statistical office, together with the UN agency, a custodian agency for a particular SDG indicator, came together to launch a citizen data project and to monitor a governance indicator. And there has been conversations in the past a lot about integrating already existing data gathered through the citizen data initiatives to SDG monitoring and reporting processes to address large data gaps in the SDGs. But this particular initiative actually paves the way for a more active leading role of national statistical offices in a groundbreaking way. And to help maybe to create a path forward for all the NSOs worldwide to see the benefits, to show the benefits of citizen data approaches and adapt it to their own context. And as mentioned, there are very detailed documentations of works through the reports that are published by the Ghana Statistical Service and the scientific paper mentioned by Alexandra. All the information is really out there, and it talks about all the details, including limitations, including opportunities, and I think they are great resources. What I would like to say a few things about the citizen data initiatives in general, and this came up a lot in this conversation today. We really need to, especially as NSOs, because this approach is really new to NSOs and data monitoring and gathering for global frameworks. It's really important to carefully consider strategies and citizen data initiatives that ensure data collection is really participatory and inclusive, and particularly in terms of engaging underrepresented and hard-to-reach communities. As mentioned in the Ghana work, there has been a lot of measures taken to be able to reach out to these communities, and for instance, using sign languages and translating the application to several different languages. And the goal really should be to avoid seeing citizens as free labor. This has been tackled and discussed a lot in the citizen data community where I come from, academic community, but instead create value that is shared with participants. And also what I hear from Ghana and also Colombia experience, people who are really at the forefront of these initiatives are very well aware of this, and this is very promising. And speaking of inclusion, we need to be really careful of potential digital divide and inconsistencies with regards to access to smartphones and technologies. And that's why it was really important in the Ghana project that it wasn't only smartphones that were used, but also voice recording was included and many other aspects. So people didn't have to have smartphones to participate. And trust in data-driven initiatives depends on strong ethical foundations that prioritize transparency, informed consent from participants, and really fairness. And there are a lot of important frameworks and principles to guide citizen data initiatives. And it looks like the national statistical offices and the UNDP as well as UNSC are very well aware of that. There's, for instance, from the academic community where I come from, we have the 10 principles of citizen science. But Copenhagen framework is building actually on these existing principles and has its own 13 principles for citizen data in the Copenhagen framework. And there are other principles as well, like human rights-based approach to data or peer and care data, which highlights the findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability of data, but also care principles about collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, and ethics in data initiatives and citizen data initiatives. So I will just close or finish by saying empowering communities to take part, not just in data collection, but also in decision-making processes is really important, and it helps ensure governance structures are accountable and aligned with public needs. And this has been the motivation of the UNDP colleagues as well as the National Statistical Office of Ghana to really implement this project. And this approach through citizen data also supports the leave no one behind principle of the SDG agenda that is subject to this conversation today and helps strengthen democratic data governance. Thank you all so much, and I'm happy to stay around if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dilek, and also for the important reminder of a principled approach, and particularly inclusion, this real shift from looking at citizens as free labor and data production to being really driven by inclusion and to be very conscious of the digital divide. We have just one last but not least, an important panelist who is Maria Nordström, who is within the digital government division of the Ministry of Finance Sweden, responsible for AI policy, who will give a little take on what you've heard, whether you're new or not to the citizen data community. I think you bring a very interesting perspective. So you just have a couple of minutes to share that with us. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. This is such an interesting and inspiring session. So I work mostly on AI, and as you all know, data is essential for AI. Similarly, AI can be used to enhance the actionability of citizen data. But we need AI governance, we need policies and practices to ensure that AI systems are transparent and accountable, and that starts with the data. In Sweden, we have developed national principles for making information available, and those principles are developed by our agency for digital government, and the principles provide a framework for organizations to publish and share data in ways that promote transparency, innovation, and societal values. So originally, these principles were developed for public organizations, but I think they are very relevant in the context of citizen data as well, and they relate to a lot of that has been said here today. There are 7 principles in total, and one of the principles is on the documentation and metadata of the data that's being collected. So this is important to ensure transparency. This is on how the data is collected, by whom, and in what conditions, similarly to what is done in Ghana. And I think it shows that this is really important because, in turn, AI governance can then encourage the transparency of how citizen data is used in AI models. Another principle is related to a risk-based approach. So even if the data isn't personal data, it must be assessed for risks. So a data set could reveal vulnerabilities or be misused. And there are government frameworks that can help assess and mitigate risks related to bias, to misuse, or unintended consequences when the data is then processed by AI. So citizen data can, of course, be used to mitigate biases when used in AI, but it can also have biases in itself. So you need to be aware of potential biases when the data is then processed by AI. Traceability in this context is very important. And finally, AI governance promotes participatory design. So when citizens are involved in how their data is used, and we've heard this before, so today, I think citizen data and the process of collecting citizen data provides a basis for dialogue, and it's crucial in establishing trust. Authorities can engage with citizen data and validate, enrich, and integrate the data into public services, as we've been told today. But this requires principles, clarity on ownership and consent. So data must be shared under open terms and under clear agreements to ensure respect for the original contributors, not to undermine trust. So I think it was mentioned that citizen data and the process of collecting citizen data can contribute to building trust in data. And similarly, I think citizen data can be utilized to building trust in AI with the help of proper AI governance. Thank you so much for having me.
That's great. Thank you so much, Maria. And really important points raised around the governance of AI and the integration of citizen data into models, and these issues around bias and how to utilize citizen data to mitigate that, but also to be very aware of it. So thankfully, we've kept to time. There unfortunately isn't much time, or any time actually, for questions and discussion. But again, please follow up with any of us, with UNDP, with OMA, with Aura, and we'll be very happy to share more information on these experiences. And with that, thank you, Omar and Aura. Thank you for being part of this session. Also to you, Maria, and to DLEC and Charlotte online, and to Sarah, of course, who is over here to be able to look at the PowerPoint. Thank you to all colleagues joining online, and for those that have come here this morning for this session. Have a wonderful rest of day. Thank you.